Three, two, one, and we are live. Let's see. Um, what's going on, everybody? This is Masterminds episode 2. I am currently just waiting for my co-host. She's about to pull up. So excited. This is fun. I love podcasts. I love doing podcasts. Hello.
What's up? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. If it's not the man and woman of the hour, Pam and
What?
Brian, what's up?
Yep. Welcome to Masterminds podcast episode 2 with Pam and Brian, Brian and Pam. I feel like I'm gonna say that every
It,
time.
it's basic is our tag at this point.
Is our tag. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling good. Had a very productive day. Had some really great conversations. I'm a driver in New York City, so I get to meet a bunch of people, and I'm having a good time. But
That's
so I would like to introduce the. Oh, actually, let me ask you how you doing. What? I'm so rude. How,
road. I'm doing great. Thank you so much. But yeah, I see that you're excited about introducing today's topic, so don't worry about it. I'm doing great. I had a busy day. Well, in the morning, I had a very slow morning.
oh, Pam just dropped. Give me 1 second. This is this is what comes with the territory. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just talk a little bit. Let me see when if Pam can rejoin. I'm just gonna send her an invite. All right. So I'm gonna. Okay, you're back.
I'm back. Let's just redo that whole thing
Okay.
then.
No, I mean, no, we're exactly where we're at. So how was your day? How was your day?
My day was great. I had a great time. I had a great time on the charts. It was a slow morning. I was able to really focus. I did a lot of reading. I meditated. I'm doing English classes for one of my friend's kids, so I did that. Hopped on a leadership call, and here we are. Here we are.
How was the morning routine? Was it on point today?
It was nice. It was like I allowed myself more time to do my morning routine. I feel like marking up my charts and being on the charts is like part of my morning routine, and I just allowed myself more time, more focus, and all of that. So it was really good. Let me put my
I'm
but
sorry. Your audio cut out for 2 seconds.
I was just putting my phone on do not disturb. I see you got an interesting filter you got there.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
I'm, I'm looking for a background so it doesn't look so crazy. Like I'm in my car, so like we're
Yeah,
doing.
it's okay. Don't worry. We find solutions. We do what we gotta do. So yeah, you were introducing today's session. What are we chatting about today?
Well, I was gonna introduce the podcast. So welcome to Masterminds. Welcome to Masterminds. Where you get to get a sneak peek about what happens behind closed doors. When people are talking about things like money. The serious things. Even artists, creative artists, having masterminds behind closed doors. The stuff that we have conversations about in the green room, like comedians are in the green room, they're chatting. Business people, they go behind closed doors and discuss what their plans for the year are and their goals, and they coordinate. And artists, us artists, we like to chat, we like to talk, and all of that magic happens outside of the audience. It happens outside of the view of the customer. It happens outside of the view of regular life. So this is what Masterminds is.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that introduction because for those of you who I know the word is kind of common nowadays, but for those of you who don't know, that's a great description of what a mastermind is when two or more individuals come in and we mastermind, we talk, we discuss, we have, we basically like let loose of like well, this might be my definition of mastermind. I don't know if this is the actual definition of the mastermind that Napoleon Hill talked about, but really like kind of like letting the notes in your head let go and share with other people as well,
Mm-hmm.
but thank you so much for introducing masterminds. And today we have well, just to add on to that, we're really here just to recap for those of you who didn't listen to episode 1. We highly recommend, if you listen to this on Spotify or a recorded IG live. Make sure that you go ahead and listen to number one because we went in depth in our stories. We went in depth in, our mission and our vision for this podcast. And we want to make sure that you don't miss out on that because it was a really good conversation. So, with that said, I actually have a question for you as an opening to our conversation, which is, what is a paradigm?
What is a paradigm? Well, from my studies and my understanding, working this idea over and over again, a paradigm would be defined as a integrated web of these three components: your thoughts, feelings, and actions. And the whole purpose of these three components is to basically design your entire life and its results by the way that you use those things. The way you use your thoughts influence the way you feel. The way you feel influences the way you behave. And your paradigm is responsible for everything that you do outside of your conscious actions. It's all your automatic behaviors. And your paradigm is basically your pattern that gives you all the results in your life. It's another way of saying it is like it's your matrix. It's the matrix of your design or somebody else's design. So, I think that's a pretty good definition. How would you define paradigm?
Uh, that was more like a question for you.
Okay, 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 okay,
No, I'm
okay.
playing. I'm playing. How would I describe paradigm? The book Change Your Paradigm is actually still on my list. I haven't read that book, but from my knowledge and um my years of doing personal development, and I first started doing spiritual awakening stuff, a lot of psychedelics, a lot of rethinking about like, who am I? I used to be a victim to my reality. And so when I started switching and seeing myself in more of a third person, I started realizing that I don't need to live in that reality. So kind of what you said about the matrix, right? I also resonate with that it's like our reality is really our perception of how we view our reality, right? Because I'm going to give you an example. This morning there was a lot of negative thoughts that was coming in. That's my unconscious thoughts, right? Coming in, trying to ruin my day. And I was sitting there like, where's this coming from? It's like, no, I'm not going to choose to think about unconscious beliefs or the negative voice in my head that I used to resonate with. So paradigm for me is how you view your reality, and we can always switch our perspective on how we view our reality. And even though we're in the same place physically, what it looks like the same place, we're in a different place mentally. I hope that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. And I think that Nano really, really likes saying this, where it's like, if you change the way you see things, the things you see change.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like
Exactly. Exactly.
that's a very famous saying within the team.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Mornings with Nano. By the way, if you guys have not checked out Mornings with Nano, he goes live on IG and YouTube Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then he also has a personal mentorship group with Mornings with Nano, and that's a whole nother conversation. But live Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That He's an incredible podcaster. He has a podcast, and that's our mentor. That's what we're striving
Yeah,
for, right?
phenomenal speaker, phenomenal
Phenomenal,
philosopher, all that.
phenomenal. But all right, so do you have anything else that you want to mention about paradigms?
Yeah, I mean, paradigms. Like I feel like I've always been a paradigm shifter. Like just being an artist naturally. I think being an artist, you kind of are always looking to shift your paradigms in new ways. Like the psychological trait that all artists tend to have is the trait of openness,
Mm-hmm.
like an open-mindedness. So having that as a psychological trait, it already kind of pre-sets you as an individual that is willing to look at the world in so many different ways. Like They always say that an artist is the one person that can scale the social hierarchy. You can see the artist being down on the street level with everybody, and because if they're talented enough, you also see them scale up to the highest points of of um of society. You can even look at the artist almost being symbolically represented by the court jester, where the court jester would be like literally one of the lowest ranked humans on in society. We're like, oh, he's the jokester, he's always making a joke, and he's like the butt of the joke, and he's like this person that is always constant humility. But what's really interesting about the court jester is that he's also the person that gets to go and make fun of the king. He gets to have the privilege of being at the king's court and even ridicule the king on behalf of everybody, you know? So, not saying that everybody's a court jester, because I think that the band is also like, think about it, the entertainment, the band can play for the people. The band also has access to high society and play for high society and watch how high society moves. So as an artist, you kind of find yourself rubbing shoulders with across the social hierarchy. So therefore, you're a traveler of paradigms, baby. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you're a creative. More likely than not, you have multiple perspectives on the world around us, because that's just what naturally comes from being an artist. So,
That's very true. That's a very good analogy. And that's very true. Like even when I'm an abstract painter, and when I talk about my paintings, I talk about this, how sometimes I'll really, really like the painting. I'll look at it the next day or a few days later and I'm like, oh no, something's gotta change. Right? Or sometimes I really don't like the painting and I need to give it some breathing time, and I see it maybe with a different lighting, or maybe my mood is different that day, or maybe I learned something else about myself or something, and I'll look at the painting that I once hated and say, actually, there are some good qualities in this work. And that's also like being able to, I like that you mentioned, the analogy with the court jester and artists in general. Like, we do live in multiple paradigms at the same time, multiple frequencies at the same time as well. And I lost my train of thought. Today's one of those days
that's okay.
which could do a great like segue into like Newton's law, and what I wanted to like go deep about how like when you seek out something in the positive form, in general, the opposite and equal reaction will come back to you. And I feel like that's what's happening on episode 2. I don't know if that's what you're
Yeah.
if
Well,
you're on the same wave.
yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like we were so energetic that I feel like now we're on the opposite side where we're really relaxed. Like the first episode, we were buzzing with energy. I could see us honing it in on the opposite side. I love it. Like, we're really lax about it.
Yeah,
Even to
yeah.
the point, last episode, we couldn't stop saying things. Now we're having little brain farts.
Now we're having little brain farts, right? Is the opposite and equal reaction will always come back to you. But I really, yeah, the artist living in multiple frequencies and being able to be the observer, I think I got it. Being able to be like the observer on the outside is very much the same, the same way you look at entrepreneurship, right? Because as an entrepreneur, and artists are entrepreneurs. I mean, if you're finding a way to make, to earn any sort of income out of your artwork, you're an entrepreneur, right? You're not only an artist, but you're an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
And as an entrepreneur, like doing multiple different businesses at the same time and wearing different hats, I got to put myself kind of in, even though I'm using the same brain, in a different personality of myself, if that makes sense, right? Um, like my trading self, where I need to be super focused and make sure that I'm paying attention to details, right? I need to be one person, one observer of my reality, as opposed to like the person who's creating artwork and kind of like let out free, right? Or the person doing like a Zoom call and you know, being a leader in the space, like being able to see that I wear many hats as an entrepreneur, and to be able to see how like making sure that I can see myself on that third observer. I have no idea if what I'm saying makes any sense right now.
It
I don't
makes
know what
perfect
to say.
sense.
I don't
It
know
makes
what
perfect sense. It makes perfect sense.
I guess this is like another great quality about like masterminds, because like Brian and I were doing these phone calls weekly, and we decided to open up to everyone else because sometimes like when you have a call that you're hosting, you're like, okay, these are the things I want to say, like bullet points. This is the
Hmm.
list. We want it to be like, lack of better words, perfect or flawless or whatever. But when you really think about it, like even when you're listening to a podcast like Joe Rogan or something, like there's pauses in between, and like that's what happens in conversation. It's okay. It doesn't have to be always super flawlessly like energetic as well. You have something to say to that?
No, yeah. I mean, Joe Rogan is one of my favorite podcasters. A little less now because, like, he's blown up so much, and I've already spent my 10,000 hours listening to him. I used to listen to him when he was on Justin TV, which is a very old
Wow.
streaming website. I think they got bought out by Twitch as well. So they Twitch might have bought them out. But yeah, just being able to have these long form conversations, just let somebody's brain kind of like weave these ideas forward. That's the true art form of podcasts. Like I've seen them do it, and I used to do them myself for that same reason, where it's like, I don't care. You've heard some of my old podcasts. I'm not really too concerned with anybody listening to it. I really just want to get some of these ideas out, like have a conversation. So now I find myself so grateful, happy, and blessed to be doing a podcast with you around what I think is a refined version of what I wanted to do even back then. I love the creative side, and I love the financial freedom side. And I feel like I've always tried to communicate a little bit of both those things. With your help, I feel like I get a complete message out. So yeah, like this is what it's about.
It's
The
about
art form of pod.
brainstorming, right?
Yeah,
Brainstorming is a
and
good word for today.
yeah, and our master, and that's actually part of the creative process in a mastermind. You brainstorm the ideas to see, you spin, like me and my friend Ace like to say, you spin your hat on on a concept for a little bit. You let your hat spin on it. um you said something that I wanted to say. Oh yeah, our personal masterminds, there were so many moments where we would have a conversation, and the back of my head is always like, yo, I really wish this was recorded and somebody else would catch it, 100%.
Right,
But
right. That's why, I mean, it's always like you never know when the idea is gonna spark, and you're like, oh, I wish this was recorded. So just better to like hop on and have it recorded. So when the ideas do spark, it's like
th- there's
at
a
least on something.
there's a really good book. It's called Where Ideas Come From.
Ooh.
And where ideas come from, they have the whole process for it, and I've read the book twice. Like the the easiest thing that I can say from it is some of the richest ideas during the early American innovations was during coffee shops, when coffee shops were available and people would go into coffee shops and have conversations. Here's like a really crazy thing to say. You know why they play really loud music at bars now? And we may do it unconsciously or consciously, but back in the day, bars are where revolutions started. Because people would go get drunk, no music playing where you can't speak over each other, and people at the bars would go there to talk about things. Like really go, oh, I really hate this, I really hate that, like, and it'll get people to socialize and get those ideas flowing. That's just one example. But another example is the coffee shop. Coffee shops being a space where people would gather, drink coffee, and they would gather from different sections of society. You would get a scientist talking to a mechanic, talking to a pharmacist, talking to somebody that drives the carriages, and they're talking about things that they overheard, allowing for ideas to kind of mix across specializations. So that's, so the book is called Where Ideas Come From. They have a very great YouTube video infographic that'll teach you everything that's in the book, so you don't actually have to read it. What I can do is, anybody who is interested in that, I can DM you that video. It's a wonderful thing to really get your mind going, and that's why things like podcasts are phenomenal. We should have more podcasts. We should not really care whether or not it's monetized or not. What we really would want is a community of people that have like minds, like interests, but different backgrounds, having conversations with one another, contributing and sharing things that help build these ideas, because one of us is going to pop out a gem because of that. People need to talk to each other more often. They say that
Yeah.
the in the industrial revolution, they kept the workers from discussing their wages and things like that, because when people start talking, people start getting ideas. People
Right.
start getting ideas.
Right.
So
Right. That was an interesting fun fact. Now that we're on fun facts, let's talk about the Witch of Wall Street.
oh yeah. So today we have a great, cool little fun finance topic. We decided to listen to or watch. I listened to it, but watch a couple documentaries, short documentaries on the Witch of Wall Street. I don't know if you would like to introduce
I
this,
can
or should I?
introduce I can introduce her. So I have her name written down. The Witch of Wall Street, her name was Hetty Green. She was born in the late 1800s. And she's such an interesting character because she grew up during a very important time in New York, where the Gilded Age, right, where New York was growing, right? Wall Street was growing, everything was growing. And I kind of like wish I saw what New York looked like on a side note back in the day, like with carriages and stuff like that, like without the huge buildings. I'm sure it was a very like interesting time of growth and expansion and all of that. And she was born from a rich father, right? From a rich father. The thing that really stuck to me, I don't know if I'm getting the quote right, is when she was like, my father told me not to give anybody anything, even a smile. So that for me was like, okay, you know how children, talking about paradigms, right? Like what
Right.
you teach your children can really, really affect them their entire lives. Really, because she really took that to heart. She really took that to heart. Her father, when he died, he left her a massive fortune that she did multiply. She was an investor. She helped invest into Wall Street, growing and expanding. And I believe like from today's dollar, it was like million, like hundreds of millions of dollars that she
Billions.
billions,
That, like, the equivalent would be billions for that time. She
billions.
she was
The
she
richest woman
was
in America at that time,
yes.
literally. And what was crazy about the story is because there was a little part of it that I resonated with on a different perspective. I mean, she hoarded money even though she grew up rich. And I had this scarcity mindset of hoarding money from poverty. So when I was listening on how she didn't like want to buy clothes, right? She wore the same thing all the time, or and all of these things. I remember when I was in college and I didn't want to spend money on lunch and none of that. And I saved a lot of money, but then I wasn't into investing. I wasn't into trading at time. I spent a lot of it traveling, which I love and I'm happy for. But also like if I would have, put that into Bitcoin as an example, or bought an ETF or done something, at least a quarter of that money, like I would have been,
That, let's talk about what she did. She invested in the greenback before it was backed by gold.
yes, exactly. And so what the part that really stuck to me and resonated with me was that like at the end, no matter how much money you have, if you don't use it to like live life, right? She invested in all of these things. She was scared that her daughter was going to get married to someone who was going to steal the money and all of these things. And then at the end, the daughter didn't have any kids, so there was no grandkids, so the money ended up going into charity and all that, which is great.
Right.
But it's also like I learned that lesson in the opposite way as her. But there was something that was like, oh my god, I'm glad I learned the lesson that money is meant to be enjoyed, because she's on the extreme. I mean, they were saying she was wearing the same black dress, she stunk, and all, a little extreme.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
for someone who had billions of dollars, like,
yeah.
what? Not spending any of it.
No. It's there's so many layers to it because in many ways she saved New York City from bankruptcy. She loaned the entire city some money because the city needed money. Like she was there in those cases, and it's almost like the society produced the person to save the city in that regard. So like we they call her Witch of Wall Street. I was in one of the ones that I was listening to. I forgot. I think Herman something. He's the guy who created yellow journalism, and journalism is kind of a type of journalism that you use to basically like like when people are shorting a stock, they kind of they spread what they call FUD, fear and uncertainty. Um, so he was like a newspaper guy who he's the reason why marijuana was illegal. And so he used journalism to say, yo, marijuana is bad for you, it's making people crazy. I don't know, blame the Mexicans, something crazy, like he was like talking crazy. So this was during that same time. So her having the name Witch of Wall Street, she does have a lot of things that you can disparage her about, but in many ways she has always been there for people at the very last moment when they really needed it. Like her husband, when he ran up like a huge debt, she bailed him out. But there were times where like that same character, like she wanted her son to go to the cheapest hospital, and
Yeah,
you know
that
like
part, like her son
like
broke her leg. And obviously, like, we don't know the full story. We weren't alive at that time, right?
right.
So I'm sure things got skewed,
Yeah.
maybe, but the fact that her son broke her leg and she wanted to take him to like a public hospital that was for people who were in poverty, and the doctors didn't want to give her the service because she had money to pay for everyone that was in that hospital. So there is some like, it's very like she helped New York City get built, and this story was really interesting, and thank you for sharing that with me and like having recommending me talk about this on here, because it's such a huge lesson in so many levels. On one way, she took her family's wealth and she reinvested it, so she was definitely like intelligent, and then in another way, she didn't really live, she didn't use the money to live,
Yeah.
right, to express herself, to be, she was
She was
compassionate on a business level
and
but
she was
not on a,
paranoid.
what happened.
And she was also paranoid. Like she was very paranoid about her money as well. So
Very paranoid that someone was gonna steal it, and yeah, it's a very, very
she
interesting story.
she would move from month to month to avoid taxes
Yes,
because the tax person
she
wouldn't be able
wouldn't,
to
she
find
didn't
her.
have her own place to avoid taxes. Like, we're talking about like real, like, like right now, if you saw a billionaire in this day and age, like live in hotels, not have a home because they don't want to pay taxes, wearing the same clothing, that not taking showers because not wanting to spend money on water, right? It's like, it's so intense. Like, she had billions of dollars, she helped the city grow, and then at the same time she didn't spend anything.
She didn't really express herself enough to see beyond like what else
She
is there.
had a scarcity mindset even though she was the richest woman in the world. That's the part
Wow,
that
that's that's
really,
that's that's the best
you
summary
know,
right there.
I mean, like, she had a scarcity mindset even though she was the richest woman in the world at that time. And that's what hit me, because I mean, I wasn't the richest woman in the world in college, but I did save up quite a lot of money, but I didn't know how to share it. I was too scared. I was too scared to, because I was in a scarcity mindset. So at one point, I think I just ticked off, and then ended up like spending it on traveling and stuff like that, which I needed. That's the lesson I needed.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad I learned that lesson, because it's, money is meant for us to enjoy our human experience. Like, we need it for food, for rent, and all those things. But aside from the scarcity mindset, like, being able to live your life, express yourself,
Mhm.
right? being
Mm.
able to, and she didn't have that, and I'm so interested in knowing more about her childhood and her story, like how her parents raised her, and just I guess it's a different time period, so she must have grown up like knowing that she's the, her family's wealthy and all of that, and it's just so interesting. Yeah, but the summary of Hetty Green is that even though she was the richest woman in the world, she had a scarcity mindset. It's unfortunate. And
Yeah.
in the YouTube video, one of the comments was like, she was the poor. What was the comment? She had all the money in the world, but she was still poor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Wow. That's so. I'm glad that I did. I was a little worried about the subject, but I'm glad that we did it because it was just like, oh my God, how we're gonna talk about
Yeah,
this? But
yeah, no, it makes so much sense. It makes sense too as creative people, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
started learning how to trade because like I want to be able to like buy the $50 tube of paint if I want to, right?
yeah.
And 100 of those,
Right.
right? At one time or whatever it is, right? I want to be able, so it's like I think it was a really fitting story because in order to be able to even go into investing into crypto or like for example going into like recently I've been researching a lot of like fundamental analysis because I live in this like dream artist world, and I love technical analysis on my charts, which is like seeing the patterns in the charts,
Mm-hmm.
marking up the charts. Like I love that part. But because I live in my own little like fantasy manifestation world, I tend to not listen to the news, and I know that that is a weakness of mine that I am growing. And so I've been researching a lot about fundamental news, CPI and all of that. And right, the old way to invest is, and people still do it, which is put their money in a yield, like a 10-year yield.
Mm-hmm.
And it fluctuates between 3% to 4% annually every year.
Mm-hmm.
That's one trade. I mean, one trade is 1 to 3 is 3% of your account. So it's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like
That's true.
insane to be like, okay, like I understand it. Like if I had like, if I wasn't a trader and I just had all this money I knew I wasn't gonna use to like put it in a yield. But this day and age with like crypto and all of that, like it makes so much more sense that to put your money in something that's more volatile, but it's a little more scary because it's more volatile. So
Yeah.
people would rather put their money in something that's safe and that's proven because there's still a level of scarcity mindset there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's still a
Mm-hmm.
level of like being afraid of like letting go of the money, being afraid of multiplying it,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
purpose the purpose of having money is to multiply it. And the difference between poverty mindset and abundance mindset is the poverty mindset is like, how can I hold this as long as I can, right? And add to what I'm holding, as opposed to the abundant mindset is how can I take what I have and multiply it, right? How can I take what I
Right.
have and multiply it
Put it to
and
work. Go put it to work.
put the money to literally put your money to work,
Yeah.
literally. So yeah, I wanted to bring up like what I'm learning with the 10-year yield, and just even thinking about like me putting my money somewhere to only get a 3% gain is
Yeah.
like
So everybody knows what a yield is it's the bond market, and the bond market is essentially when you're loaning the government money. So, you can loan banks money, you can loan governments money. So whenever you're buying bonds, you're loaning the government money, just like credit cards loan you money. You're loaning the government money, and so there's something called the 1 year yield, the 10-year yield, the I think 6 month yield. Is there a 6 month yield? Am I bugging?
I don't know if
Like,
there's a six
no, no,
month
no,
yield.
not a monthly one, right? Not a month, but like let's say like a 1 year yield, right? So you're basically saying I'm loaning the government, let's say $200, and in 1 year when this matures, I'm gonna get this much money back from them as long as I keep it with them for that long. The bank version of that is I'm loaning a bank money. Those are called CDs. And that's when you loan a bank money, and you loan. I think with banks you could do like 3 month loans or like 6 month loans, and you can get a little bit of money back if you don't know
Mm-hmm.
what to do with it. It's a way of getting some money. Now
Mm-hmm.
that we're getting a little bit more on the grounded side of of our podcast, I think this is a good transition to our market perspective segment, right? Market watch.
Yeah, we
We
could
still haven't decided on our
call it
name.
market watch. Let's just call it market. We've been trying to figure out, like, I don't want to say the word China. I'm trying to get that. I'm getting that word out of my vocabulary, but my New York slang is always saying China. We are figuring out what we want to call this segment of our podcast. Market watch. Um, we're open to creative ideas. If
Yeah,
anybody is watching this and wants to comment,
yeah. The market weather. I don't know. Just we keep.
market weather.
Yeah, I don't
Market
know. We're working on it.
watch
Yo,
makes sense.
market watch makes sense. It's just that there's a brand around it, but we're not branding it. It's just literally we're watching the markets.
Yeah,
You guys, you
exactly.
you guys are watching a mastermind work right in front of you. This is
Right in
exactly what it
front.
is.
This is exactly what happens in
Exactly
our phone
it.
calls. Okay, what are we gonna talk about this week? Okay, we're gonna talk about
So
this
we
week.
were talking. You mentioned CPI. We could start with CPI.
Yes.
So this week was CPI. CPI is an acronym for Consumer Price Index, and that was this Wednesday. So the CPI numbers dropped. This happens every month. So what happens every month with CPI is the country takes all a think tank of all their smart accountants and financial advisors, and what they do is that they take a basket of goods, things like gas prices, the price of milk, the price of eggs, the price of bread, the price of toilet paper. They take all these things that the average consumer is buying for to live on a weekly or on a monthly basis, and they're coming up with a number, an average of uh, a number that represents whether or not the consumer is paying more or less for all these goods put together, you know? So what that means is that once a month the markets get crazy volatile with the expectations of those numbers. Volatile meaning huge swings up or huge swings down, or just like really aggressive movements in the market. Some traders like that, some traders hate that, but it's an important day. It's kind of like a monthly Super Bowl.
Yeah, monthly scoreboard is a good way to put it.
Yeah, a monthly Super Bowl.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so do you know what happened to this week
I
this
believe
month
this
with CPI?
the CPI news that came out yesterday was this, like, the forecast and the actual percent was the same.
So we just stayed the same.
It stayed the same.
And what happened to the Nasdaq, since we trade Nas?
Yeah, what?
Didn't it just it shot so high up into the sky? We made higher highs. Like
NASDAQ has been making higher highs for
we have
such
been
a long
we've
time.
been ripping. That's what happened.
That's what I was
Big green
actually
candle.
looking at. Yeah, I was actually looking at the Nasdaq from last year. I think it was like a 10K, or was it 2022? Or since I started trading Nasdaq, it doubled.
Yeah.
So even the idea of, like, I would even though the Nasdaq has a lot of volatility, and last year was more like a bearish year compared to this year, so there are going to be some years that are more bearish than others, but I would so much rather put my money in a place like the Nasdaq, where, okay, yeah, I'm risking more technically, but it's because it's so volatile, it's gonna give me a better ROI,
Yeah.
return to investment. For those of you who do not know what the Nasdaq is, it's basically a indice, and an indice is a portfolio of stocks, and the Nasdaq has 100 of the most important technological stocks, and all in one portfolio, and that's why it's so volatile. And did you have something to say about
No,
that?
I was just gonna list some of the stocks that are. So it's a portfolio of stocks like Tesla, Apple, Nvidia, which is like the microchips that we use, Amazon, like any tech company that
Zoom.
you can think, Zoom, like Meta, which we're on the app right now. It owns parts of Meta. So the Nasdaq, yeah, it's a portfolio with all these type of stocks, tech company
Yep.
stocks.
Yep. It's interesting that today there was also news about the unemployment, and the unemployment number did go up. So it
Mhm.
was like negative news. But as I was like digging, I was one of the educators I follow for fundamental analysis. His name is Patrick Kenny. He's on the educational platform that we're a part of, and I really love his teachings because he's so good with fundamentals. Like he breaks down the numbers. He breaks down like what to do if the numbers rise, if they don't rise, if they stay the same, like what to do with what you're trading. And it's interesting that the unemployment went up, the unemployment rate went up. And when the unemployment rate goes up, the Fed likes to decrease inflation, right? That way, that going back to CPI and consumer, if you decrease inflation, right, the prices can go down, but then the stock market goes up. So even though unemployment is, going up, and at the same time the stock market is going up, and it's kind of like it feels like a contradiction, right? Because you
Mhm.
would think, okay, if unemployment rate is up, people are selling their stocks and stuff, right? Or people are selling their profits because they're unemployed. But then you got to think about, okay, majority of the people are actually not into investing in stocks and stuff.
No.
So it's like, okay, like it seems like it's contradicting, but it just
But but
going
but
deeper.
when people are getting unemployed, though, companies are not paying for those employees, and they get to keep some of that money.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I would
that's
say that's
true.
another way of thinking of it.
That's another way of thinking of it too. But really going
Masterminding.
deeper into this, yeah, really going deeper into like the fundamentals, and for me too, like getting out of my like the rock that I live in and going deeper into fundamentals has made me really understand like what goes on with indices, what goes on with a commodity like gold, like what's happening with Bitcoin. I want to tell you a Bitcoin story that okay, so I'm living in Mexico. My boyfriend, his bank is Santander. It's a Spaniard bank, right? Yeah, I believe it's a Spaniard bank. And here in Mexico, that's the bank. That's like the biggest bank that they use here. So he has that account. He bought a flight ticket, and I used my Delta Amex card because I mean, I that's what the card is for, right? And he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna send you the money," but we have two different banks. So he was trying to figure. We were figuring out last night of like how do we do a wire transfer, right? And also like even though like he speaks enough English, he's like, what is a wire transfer? Because he speaks enough English, but then there are some words he doesn't know yet, right? And I don't know those words in Spanish either. So we're like, I'm telling him like, do you see why Bitcoin is so important? Because
Bitcoin solves this. The meme.
Bitcoin solves this problem right here. Where here in Mexico they don't use Zelle, they don't use Venmo, they don't use, and here in Mexico they use something called Demo. I don't use Demo. I think it's Demo. Yeah, we don't use Demo in the States. So we ended up like, doing the PayPal, but then I was looking at like the rates of PayPal, and I was sending the money to my bank, and it's gonna take 1 to 3 days to get my money through PayPal. And I'm just like, this is why Bitcoin is so important, right?
Definitely.
This is, you can send someone money through a wallet address. The government's not going to even know it's you, right? In a good way or in a bad way, right?
Well, they might know it's you. Yeah,
They
they, they
might know
they they are
it's
tracking it. That
you.
is so. This is where it's called KYC. Know your customer. That's snitching on you all day. So they are keeping track of it. So the minute that your Bitcoin touches your like you make it the transaction back in into US dollars, they want their money. They
Yeah,
know. They
yeah.
know.
No, I'm talking about like the wallet address doesn't have your name on it.
Oh, okay, word.
Like if I kept it into Bitcoin, like on a
Right,
decentralized exchange on my
right,
cold
right,
wallet,
right,
right?
right.
You're just sending Bitcoin from one wallet to the other. Our names are not on that wallet. Obviously, like you said, like when you go,
I've I've
thank you
I've
for
got some.
clarifying that. When you put it back to your dollar, of course they're gonna track
Yeah.
it. But yeah, thank you for clarifying that. But yeah, it was just like such a great moment for me because like he trusts Bitcoin. He's like, I trust Bitcoin and stuff like that. But it's such a great moment because this is why something like understanding the fundamentals, like having that small transaction where our banks are from two different countries
Hmm.
and it's gonna take 3 days for me to get my money through PayPal if I unless I pay for the instant fee is like Bitcoin, you get it in seconds. from just sending a wallet address. Obviously, don't make mistakes because you can't call customer service to get your money
No,
back.
sir.
But it's a great, like, it was just a great real life situation of why I believe in why I believe investing into Bitcoin is such a great asset.
Definitely. And that leads us to the crypto conversation, which this is already the crypto conversation, but what we wanted to mention. So our mentors right now have been saying, yo, keep an eye on crypto. We're having the pullback. And that's the value of being part of a community where people are they're watching your six, they're watching your back. They're watching like things that you don't always have time to pay attention to. When
Yeah,
you are
for
part of a
real.
community of people that are watching different things, you have the ability to get the heads up when things are advantageous. That's the advantages of a mastermind, being parts of groups of people talking the same language with the same interests, resonating. So
Yep.
just wanted to add that
Yep.
because that was on our docket.
Like for the fact that Coinbase is gonna be delisting USDT, like I didn't research that on my own. I got a message from the group chat and I was like, oh shoot, like let me convert
And
my
that's
USDT.
huge because tether is like I think market cap, it's the hugest, it's the most used crypto, like tether USD Tether, for those who don't know, it's a stable coin that a lot of transactions in crypto are being made. So you turn your dollar into Tether, and Tether represents that dollar. So basically, it's 1 to 1. That means that like one Tether is always $1, $1 is always one Tether. And people use Tether to move in and out when they're trading, moving in and out of other cryptos. And that's how they preserve the value that they're earning when they're
Yep.
trading.
Yep. Like for example, like if you make profit on a certain project and you want to reallocate that profit, but it's a like the project, the secondary project you want to get into is at an all-time high, so you want to wait for it to pull back so you can enter at a good price. You can move your profit from one project into a stable coin like USDT or USDC, which is another stable coin. Leave your money in crypto, and then when the secondary project you want to get into goes to the zone that you want to enter at, you could just go ahead and switch it into that project instead of taking out your profits, then converting it to the dollar, and then there's a fee there, and then there's so many fees and all of that. So just moving it into a stable coin, your money is still in crypto, right? And you could do all of this through a decentralized exchange,
And you're keeping
right?
your dollar value.
And you're keeping your dollar value without moving it back and forth between the dollar and crypto and paying unnecessary fees. But like something like that, like I didn't do my own research that Coinbase was going to take out USDT. I got a notification from Alex, and I was like, "Oh, thanks, Alex."
Pam, we're running out of time. Let's show e-commerce some love.
Let's
We
show
did this to
e-commerce
e-commerce last
some. I
time.
know because
We have about like not less than 10 minutes, but we have 10 minutes ish.
I know because IG cuts us off in an hour. Ecom.
So
What do you want to
e-com
say?
and marketing.
Ecom
What's
and
up with
marketing.
yeah.
I
Well,
know there's so much to talk about.
yeah. E-com is a nice slower thing, but I mean it hasn't really much changed because it's slow, it's safe. We're getting out of we're moving through the holiday season right now, and right now I'm kind of like looking for Valentine's Day niches. And I started looking into who does those kind of videos within our group, and how to set up a Valentine's Day store.
Mm.
Like, so understanding ecom is like understanding the seasons of consumers' buying habits, and
Yep.
then the second part of it is marketing. So learning how to communicate with consumers. Like the whole reason why we're doing a podcast like this is because it's from what we're learning about marketing.
Yep.
This is like being able to you know use the platform tools on social media in order to create an advantageous situation for yourself.
Yeah, and also to share like the I wouldn't be here right now if someone didn't share information with me. So being in a situation where we can share to others and maybe like Especially helping creative people get into the idea of, like, I'm in the process of looking what I want in my store and stuff like that, and it feels like the process of painting, right? So to get creatives in the space of, financial literacy, financial freedom, what does financial freedom mean to you, right? If trading and investing into crypto seems like this foreign language that you don't want nothing to do with, as a creative person, opening up an e-com store, figuring out the colors of the layout, right? Figuring out what you want to buy. Like you said, what if you get excited about Valentine's Day? What if you're excited about Christmas and stuff like that? All of these things that you're excited about, instead of you being only the consumer, putting on that different paradigm, right? That different hat, and being also the producer, where it's like, if you, Chris Reef mentioned this, the educator on ecom. He mentioned that if you're excited about a product, it's more than likely that someone else is excited about it too. So you can buy it for yourself, but you can also buy it and sell it on your website, right? Because other people are going to be excited as well. I mean, let's look at the famous mop, the red mop where you put your foot on the pedal, right? And then it
Yeah.
like spins the mop for you. That went crazy on ecom. I know people that made thousands of dollars selling a mop. So it's like, literally, if you're excited about putting your foot, I've used one of those mops. They are exciting. I'm not gonna lie. Like, you put your foot on the pedal and it spins the mop for you. It's exciting, right? It feels fun. It makes cleaning fun. So if it's fun for you as a consumer, putting on the extra, putting on that different hat and being like, I can also sell this and be creative with it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
be excited about it,
Ace has one of
right?
those mops. Shout out to Ace for having one of those mops.
Yep. Shout out
Well,
to
look at
Ace for
that.
having one of those maps.
If it's a good
I
idea, it's a good idea.
I can't see comments or who's on here. I don't know why Instagram is doing that. This has happened
Okay.
to me multiple times. I can't see no comments. I can't
Oh
see any
no.
of that.
Oh no.
It's like literally, because you feed off of other people's energy and what
For
they
sure.
say and
Oh
stuff
man,
like
am I
that.
the lucky one that gets it?
You're the
Oh,
lucky one. And I started IG lives on my page, and I still can't see the comments. So it's not even that I'm on your page.
could
I
it be
don't
a
know what
setting?
it could
Yeah.
be.
What I'll do is I'll troubleshoot it for you. I'll start. I'll look at the FAQ and
It
stuff.
could be my Wi-Fi because I'm not on full bar. It could be that. Maybe my Wi-Fi is using me to make sure I'm not blurry. But on a side note, because we have a few minutes left, yes, ecom is really exciting. I'm in the process of, I'm still going through the course videos. I'm learning how to, create Facebook ads, how to utilize Facebook as a business manager. I finally figured out my Google Voice. I have
Let's
a
go.
VPN for my phone, and I couldn't figure out how to put a Google Voice. So Google Voice is basically, you can literally use a Gmail to have a free number on Google. And you could use that number for your business. So any of you who, might need a secondary number for your business, it's a great way to have a free phone number. Finally figured that out. And I'm still on the idea of, I want to sell home organizational things. I think
I
people go
I I
crazy over
I,
cleaning supplies.
I do too because I just like home. I have a bunch of stationery. I want all
Awesome.
the
Yep. And I actually wrote it
straight
down that
up nerd.
I wrote down my mission. Our mission is to help you have fun at home.
Oh,
I don't know if that's gonna
nice.
change or not, because like I was going through AliExpress and stuff looking for products, and I found, because I work from home, and the charger things, like, I can see how having like a little like organizational clip on your table where
Yeah,
you could put your outlet, you could put
yeah,
your extension, and
yeah.
I don't know why I was like, oh my god, that makes me so excited. Like,
No disorderly wires. Hell
hell
yeah.
yeah, right?
I saw a product that's like a well that you clip onto the side of the table, and it just goes underneath the table. I'm like, I want that right now because I want my pens and like some notepads that I could just have there and just so understanding ecom is understanding yourself, is also understanding other people. So it really has you thinking about these things on an extra level. But with that being said, this has been a wonderful mastermind. Thank you so much, Pam.
Thank
thank
you,
you
Brian.
thank you so much,
Thank you, everyone.
everybody. Yeah. I don't know, you want to sign
Yeah.
out, on any last final words? 5 minutes.
Any last final words? What I do want to say is how everything intertwines from knowing about consumer production to knowing about what's happening in the stock market and inflation rate, and also knowing your e-commerce, like who's gonna buy and what they're gonna buy at what time, and
Ooh,
it's like all coming together. And I can't
yes.
quite word it right now the best of my ability because I'm new to
I,
e-com, but I do
I
see.
I've got words for that, but I think that we're gonna go and mastermind that on the back room of the mastermind,
Yeah,
and
yeah, the
and then
back
and then
room.
we're gonna and then we'll come back. We'll come back to them with it.
Yeah, yeah. And then you just gave me another idea in the future. When we have a mastermind like area, we could do like back room masterminds.
Oh, your audio is cutting out. Oh no. Okay. Well, I think this has been masterminds. Wait, no, still can't hear you. Oh man. All right, I'm just gonna end it. This has been an amazing mastermind. Thank you, Pam. We will talk to you guys later. See you next week.
See
See
you
you next
guys.
week.